Pokemon Scarlet and Violet. The first installation in the series' 9th generation are some of the strangest games I've ever played. I don't think I've ever had this much fun with a AAA title with as little technical polish as this. And while I believe these problems should be discussed and critiqued, I want to focus on what these titles succeed in because they managed to accomplish a lot of spectacular things, some of the best the series has to offer. A great selection of new Pokemon with unique typings, abilities, and moves. Bro, did this man really bring a Delibird to OU? What is this even gonna do? How the hell did I get swept by a damn Delibird? There are strong character designs, a fun experience with the open world approach, and Larry. Yet, one particular aspect left the biggest impression on me, and just like there has been with all the previous generations, this will be the first thing that comes to my mind whenever discussion surrounding Pokemon Scarlet and Violet ensues, which is Area Zero. Serving as the destination for the game's final chapter, Area Zero is incredible, and home to the immensely powerful Paradox Pokemon, as well as one of the series' greatest, if not the best, finales. Its success can be attributed to a number of factors, such as the unique Pokemon on display or the narrative that unfolds within its depths. But I think it's important to examine the small details within these very factors to see why they're effective in the first place. For that reason, we're going to dive into all things related to the great crater of Paldea to see why I believe Area Zero is spectacular, and an example of what modern Pokemon is doing successfully to distinguish itself from its predecessors. As a brief disclaimer, this video will show footage from both of the titles, but primarily Violet, since that is the version I played through. And with that out of the way, let's descend into the world of Pokemon. If there's one aspect Scarlet and Violet wish to clearly communicate to the player, it's how instrumental Area Zero is to the core of the Paldea region. While, yes, that can be interpreted literally since it rests in the heart of the region, I mean more so from a narrative and world-building angle. Before the final stretch, Scarlet and Violet's story is split into 3 separate storylines, but each one can be broken down to the fundamental theme that is finding your treasure. This phrase and the ideology it springs from are commonly promoted by the staff at the Academy, acting as a diegetic means of embodying the game's non-linear, player-dictated explorative focus. Alright, so what do you want to do in a Pokemon game? Catch cool new Pokemon you want on your team? Sure, go for it. 6-0 body bag this poor businessman just trying to find some semblance of joy in the mundane cycle of an adult life? Very real and deplorable, but yeah, that option is available. Treasure is subjective in this sense, but it can also be divided into a literal and metaphorical sense, and Area Zero manages to occupy both these roles. What kind of treasure is often the most exciting? Well, I think a lot of people and myself would say the one with some sort of journey involved and makes the payoff worth the endeavors to reach it. As the final destination of the game, Area Zero fulfills these parameters and manages to serve a special and unique role in the series by doing so. Every mainline Pokemon game has been built on essentially 2 core tenets. Become the greatest Pokemon trainer, and gotta catch 'em all, which can be accomplished by defeating the Elite Four or its substitutes and completing the Pokédex respectively. Yet, what Scarlet and Violet do that's so refreshing for the series is pulling the focus away from these tired objectives and instead pin it on a location. Beating this game's Elite Four and Champion isn't the grand finale. It's a stepping stone that leads to what the developers want you to remember about the Paldea region, and that's Area Zero and the signature traits to Paldea that originate from it. Now, in order to effectively establish Area Zero's placement as the conclusion to the main narrative, it needs to be built up. Luckily, Scarlet and Violet successfully accomplished this with repetition visually and linguistically. First, on the visual side, Area Zero is a massive crater in the center of the region that the player will always be working around on their adventure. That, in of itself, exudes an air of mystery, as the truth behind those mountains lies just outside the player's grasp. As more abilities for Miraidon or Koraidon are unlocked, such as the power to glide or scale walls, the player can peek over the barriers a little bit to see that there lies an enormous swirling vortex of clouds. This is actually shown on the promotional art, but even if you never saw that, it's showcased in the game's introduction as well, since they, funnily enough, just took the in-game map, slap some cloud coverage over the crater's black abyss, and called it a day. Regarding the linguistic teasing, Scarlet and Violet love to remind you that Area Zero is completely off limits. Yeah, this 10-year-old who decided to make a Magikarp their perfect partner is allowed to climb towering frigid mountains and pull ominous black stakes out of the ground, but traveling below the Cloud Sea? Oh, that's a means of expulsion. Yet, that's just basic reverse psychology. If somebody tells you not to push the big red button, you're gonna want to push the big red button. The player is well aware from the beginning that they will find themselves in the crater at some point in the game. Yet the desire to find out what lies in the murkiest part of the region is just natural curiosity, and perhaps one particular strain of it. 4 individuals collaborated on a research paper called Integrated Curiosity and Uncertainty in Game Design that dissects curiosity into 5 different categories. But the one that concerns this discussion is their proposed conceptual curiosity. They essentially define this term as the branch focused on the player's desire to find out things. This feeling is then perpetuated by creating informational gaps, so the player might construct a mental model of what the mechanic or region looked like. The full picture isn't revealed until the player enters Area Zero for themselves, but these gaps can be filled by the player's imagination via several means found across Paldea. Hell, I thought the entirety of Area Zero would be a sprawling laboratory like something from a Resident Evil title. Regardless, some of the biggest examples of these teases come via the Academy's library. Spread across the multiple floors are a series of books called A Culture that detail the various Paradox Pokemon that could be found in their respective games. More importantly are the Scarlet and Violet books, which offer insight into the Pokemon and strange iconography tucked away in Area Zero's depths. However, the chapter containing a cartograph shows a crude sketch of Area Zero's layout, from the lush upper half to the crystalline lower half. Prior to actually arriving, this is the closest the player gets to the truth of the crater, and I love that this depiction is hidden as a reward for curious players. Even the history classes will provide a bit of insight into the crater and region's history altogether. There are also a number of elements from Arven's storyline that connect to Area Zero, like Mabostif's injuries resulting from an encounter with a Paradox Pokemon, or the Herba Mystica's being native to the crater, but I think at this time it's best to enter Area Zero itself to see where all this buildup leads to. Below the billowing vortex lies an absolutely striking area that distinguishes itself from the entirety of the Paldea region, but not in the ways that are readily apparent. Area Zero is bathed in rays of light peering through the clouds, which gives the location a brighter sheen when compared to the plains above. Also exclusive to Area Zero are these gusts of shimmers that float through the air or rise from the grass. These help accentuate the crystallized design motif that populates Area Zero, but they bestow upon the environment a heavenly quality as well. White and green are 2 colors that dominate the upper section of Area Zero, and this palette assists in establishing the tone, as green is a color indicative of life, tranquility, and resurrection, while white is typically representative of purity and innocence. If you want further proof of the location's focus on this palette, just look at the flowers. If you booted up your game right now and went for a leisurely stroll, you're only going to find white flowers, and that is almost certainly an intentional detail considering the variety within the rest of Paldea. However, it goes even deeper, and I recommend getting cozy because we're going to be going places. A Pokemon that can be encountered in Area Zero is Floette, a fairy type that comes in 5 potential colors alongside the rest of its evolutionary line. Additionally, Scarlet and Violet actually give each color a different entry in the Pokédex. An odd, albeit extremely neat detail, but let's examine White Floette's entry from Violet in particular. If it finds someone messing up a flower bed, it will attack them without mercy. This Floette takes particularly good care of white flowers. Okay, big whoop. It takes care of white flowers, and yeah, Area Zero has them. Except that it only has white Floette. Just like the flowers, no other color of Floette is available here. Furthermore, white Flabebe and its family have consistently been the rarest variant since its debut. On routes 4 and 7 of Pokemon X and Y, red, yellow, and blue Flabebe variants held a 30% encounter rate depending on the flower type you walked through. But orange had a 4% chance across each type, and white had a measly 1% encounter rate. In Ultra Sun and Moon, white and orange variants could only be encountered via SOS battles, and white remained the rarer of the two once again. Determining the rates for Scarlet and Violet was more difficult. However, thanks to a leaked paste bin posted by user SLP32_0 on Reddit, we can see the encounter rates of the entire Pokédex, including Flabebe. Flabebe through Flabebe Free all have a 50% encounter rate in the respective flower type, with the exception of the fourth one, which we know is white because Float 4 later in the list is mentioned to be exclusive to the Great Crater of Paldea. Therefore, white remains the queen of rarity across every region, and its exclusivity here plays into Area Zero's color theory by using green and white hues to give the location its pure Eden-like atmosphere in multiple manners. And those themes of life and purity are exceptionally fitting given Area Zero is not only home to its life across the past, present, and future with the addition of Paradox Pokemon, but a location that is mostly unsullied by the presence of humankind. Furthermore, that exclusivity and rarity serves a dual purpose as the Great Crater is filled to the brim with strong, rare Pokemon only found here, such as Farigiraf, Dunsparce, Glimmora, and others. Another notable quality of Area Zero is its vertical construction. Paldea is a rather diverse region with its rolling grasslands, deserts, tall mountains, and other biomes, but the overall layout is primarily horizontal. That's not to say there aren't elements of verticality with Glisado Mountain and South Province Area 3, however the depth as well as the contained nature of Area Zero highlight this design philosophy even more. If you jump off the top, you're going to be falling for quite some time, and you're going to glimpse plenty of winding paths and caverns. The fact that this descent also must be made on foot upon your first visit helps sell the player the sheer size of the crater. That probably has to do with the slower than molasses walk speed intensified by the choppy frame rate, but hey, we call that a calculated decision. Area Zero uses a cloud vortex to separate its habitat from the rest of Paldea, and the crater uses this same device to split it into a top and bottom half. While the top is a bright grassland, the bottom half is a dark cavern primarily lit by plentiful and gigantic crystals. The closer the player gets to the crater's true secret, the darker and bleaker it becomes. I mean, damn, just look how many top-tier friends live down here. I find what Area Zero presents at a first glance to be spot on for environmental storytelling, but just as crucial of a component is the accompanying soundtrack. As always, we're gonna talk about the music in this area because, oh my god, it's amazing. Since Area Zero was designed to represent this surreal, almost otherworldly place that juxtaposes the more conventional landscape spread throughout Paldea, whatever melody, or lack thereof, that is used for this environment is gonna have a drastic impact on its perception. Area Zero's theme incorporates several elements that are commonplace in the JRPG genre, but not so much within a Pokemon title. It's an unsettling yet tranquil piece punctuated by chimes and vocals that remind me of something straight out of Xenogears' or Chrono Trigger soundtracks. The strong bass notes alongside the vocals that are abruptly cut off, leaving behind empty spaces within the song, really sell the spacious nature of this area as well as the dangers and mysteries lurking in this cavern. All of this builds towards a section that I can only describe as the Toby Fox progression. Someone who is more well-versed in music than me could probably describe it much better, but in Toby Fox's work on Undertale and Pokemon Sword and Shield, the synth instrumentation in plenty of his songs has this wavering mourning sound, which reminds me of a theremin like in these examples. Or he'll include this section, where he strips away all the other elements and lets a nearly isolated version of the main melody flow. Although it's very identifiable, I consider that a good quality that gives his music a signature flair, and the unique identity of this song helps bolster the oddity that is Area Zero. I'm sure this goes without saying, but Toby Fox is an incredibly talented dude. The use of background beats that sound like they're being reversed also plays into Scarlet and Violet's focus on time. Then there are the battle variants, one for traditional encounters and another reserved for battles with Paradox Pokemon. Scarlet and Violet opt to have wild Pokemon themes take on the form of a faster, higher energy version of the area theme, which allows for smooth transitions. I personally love this, and Area Zero is no different. The primary difference between the two songs is that the main battle theme focuses on its bouncy main melody, while the Paradox Pokemon version puts the emphasis on the bass, giving it this darker quality and potentially playing into their aggressive, unnatural existence. You can really hear it in this section. So, this begs the question, why do all of these small elements make Area Zero special, and, to echo what I claimed earlier, something wholly refreshing to the series? Do factors like color theory really play into its status? Was an entire segue dedicated to flowers truly necessary? Well, that's actually multiple questions, and the last one is debatable, but it's all to serve the point that Area Zero, despite being a single chapter in the story and world, is the culmination of this game's narrative, and these elements, no matter how small, are crucial to giving Area Zero a firm, distinct identity. If Area Zero was simply a location with lighting, construction, and encounterable Pokemon similar to that of the surface, then its significance as the final dungeon would have been completely lost. Furthermore, if Area Zero wasn't simply a beautifully designed area with style over substance, then all the build-up toward it would have been wasted. Luckily, that's far from reality, as Area Zero serves as not only the culmination of a major character's arc, but what I believe to be the strongest narrative beat. To best analyze this, we're going to be painting the scene as we go. As previously mentioned, Scarlet and Violet choose to break their main story into 3 arcs. Victory Road, which follows the typical Pokemon formula with the player challenging 8 gyms before tackling the Elite Four and Champion. Starfall Street, a story focused on the game's antagonistic team, Team Star, and investigating why they operate in opposition of the Academy. And Path of Legends, a quest to take down enormous Pokemon named Titans to heal an ailing Pokemon, and also the most vital to how the story in Area Zero unfolds. See, each arc is also tied to a character from the ensemble, with Nomona serving as your rival on the road to the top, Penny acting as Team Star's secret leader Cassiopeia, and Arven leading the charge to save his partner Mabosstiff. There's one other character, and that's dependent on the game you're playing. Professor Sada for Scarlet, or Professor Turo for Violet. So, I'm a Generation 5 guy, and I'm a massive fan of version differences even if they are small details meant to sell the theme of the respective game, and their designs certainly follow suit. Aside from the obvious caveman and bodysuit parts of their outfits meant to parallel the past and future respectively, other shared elements of their design add to their period of focus. Sada's unkempt hair, stone buttons, rounder pockets, and fluffy collar embody the wild past scheme, while Turo's sleeker, streamlined elements such as the square pockets and buttons, as well as the short trimmed hair, feed into the futuristic aesthetic. It's all rather nice. Oh, and right, they're also Arven's parent.
What?
They have a rather rocky relationship, however, since they left Arven at such a young age, and that leads to him being rather dismissive about going into Area Zero to help them. This final mission, aptly titled The Way Home, is detailed at the end of the Path of Legends, and gives credence to why the other arcs are essential, as you need both Nomona and Penny before plunging into the abyss, but also the core of the conclusion, which is Arven's relationship with Sada or Turo. Area Zero hides 2 main secrets: the existence of Paradox Pokemon and the research that has been conducted previously. The player is enlightened to both of them, and that's primarily through the presence of journals located in each of the scattered research stations. In a lot of ways, they're very similar to the diaries present in the Cinnabar Mansion that tell the story of Mewtwo's creation. The progression of this story has all the hallmarks of a scientist obsessed with their work as they sink deeper and deeper into the results. The most striking line from these journals is, "That man or woman walked out not long after the boy was born." Explicit language like "that man or woman" and "the boy" highlights how little human connections might have mattered to them when compared to their dream. It's strange to say that Pokemon, the E for everyone colorful creature collecting series, has tackled the mature topic of dysfunctional family units, but, Game Freak's done this 4 times now? I'm not sure I can definitively say it's my favorite execution when Gestus and N exist, yet it does something extraordinarily creative and grim with it. Due to the rampage of a second Koraidon or Miraidon, Arven's parent is dead. The game series has tackled the idea of Pokemon dying with Lavender Town and Alder's partner, and there have been ghosts of people in various regions. But having a main character confirmed to have been killed as a key point of the narrative, especially due to a Pokemon, is something the series has never tackled before. What that leaves us with is an ironic fate where a scientist who has become so obsessed with their life's work that their spouse left them and the professor was killed because of it. Now, I'm going to skip ahead to later where it said that Arven's parent did truly love them, and yeah, this is where the dynamic gets complicated. We need to jump back to Research Station number 3 where a book reads, "I'm so close to creating a world like the one in the book, a paradise where we three can live happily together forever." Although the language places most of the significance on the realization of their dream, something they've apparently wanted since childhood when they obtained the Scarlet and Violet book, they frame it as something good for their family. So, why then does the reference to their family in the other journal feel so cold? Well, that's a consequence of circumstance and time. The journals in the research stations are chronologically arranged in the order you find them, and just as the creator continues to funnel into dark places, so does the professor's sanity. The 4th station is the only one that has been destroyed, both to showcase the legendary's attack and symbolize the broken mental state of the professor. What we're left with is a deed that might have been well intended, but became corrupt and selfish the closer to reality it moved. I'd also like to observe their lab, which hasn't seen a Lysol bottle in a decade, and there isn't too much of note. Yet, a cute detail is a whiteboard with 2 pictures, one of a young Arven with his Mastiff, and the other one depicting Mastiff sleeping. Although it's small, it conveys the mingled feelings within the professors between obsessing over their research, but still harboring care for their child. A small snapshot of the people they care about, completely encircled by their life's work. However, what I find fair to conclude is that if they did truly love Arven, then they wouldn't have been so absent in his life. Actions at the end of the day speak louder than words, and they could still chase a personal dream while being a good parent. Due to the isolation the professor faced, they created an AI replica of themselves to assist in their work, even going as far to carry on their legacy after their death. Nevertheless, even an AI program to continue where their counterpart left off fails to see the logic in creating a supposed paradise with humans, modern Pokemon, and displaced creatures. That prompted them to call upon the player to help defy their programming by shutting down the time machine that harnesses the Terra Crystals. Although this should be expected from effective writing, all of the main elements that compose Scarlet and Violet's identity sprang from the narrative, and particularly one central point. Your partner Pokemon and the other Paradox Pokemon, terrestrialization, finding one's treasure, they all coalesce at the focus that is Area Zero. Pokemon has been getting more creative with the role of the professors in recent titles, but this is by far the most innovative implementation, as not only are they the ones to conclude your journey rather than initiate it, but they act as the game's main antagonistic entity. Conceptually, I find this premise to be brilliant, but they also managed to nail the execution of it. The professor's text becoming more and more corrupted. They rise into the air above the trainer and casually drop master balls to play into the original professor's ego and elitism. And the battle kicking off with, "Please defeat me." Oh my god, it just comes together into one of the best final bosses the series has done. That's not even including the music, which is among my favorite from the soundtrack and uses these chaotic shimmer sounds in the beginning to build on the arena's crystalline structure, and this powerful tune that sells the game's final encounter. Yet, that's only Phase 1, which is capped off by tender lines from the professor meant for Arven. The text box changes from AI Turo or Sada to Professor Turo or Sada with a question mark. Is this the original professor's personality breaking through, and are these the unspoken feelings they have for their family? Or is this actually the AI that came to learn better from their creator? That then brings us to the second phase, where Scarlet and Violet really take advantage of the conventions of the series and its existence as a game. The typical "you are challenged by" prompt glitches out, and if you go frame by frame, you can see the text, "AI Turo or Sada has no intention of fighting anymore," for a fraction of a second as they fight back against the Paradise Protection Protocol, attempting to take control. Another cute detail is that the background also changes to reflect the game that you are playing. But regardless, you are locked out from using any Pokeballs, something teased back in the laboratory, which means that your only course of action is to move down to Koraidon or Miraidon and finally use them for battle for the first time in the game. This quirk feels stripped from a Metal Gear game, and I never expected Pokemon of all franchises to implement something like this for the sake of storytelling. The second and final phase is a scripted encounter, as it's primarily for storytelling purposes, and the movesets actually lend themselves to it. On the first turn, the opposing legendary seemingly always uses Taunt, referencing that this legendary was the alpha and bullied the other one into fleeing the Great Crater. Even the first shot of the game showcases Koraidon or Miraidon rising from the crater to escape, as the first-person shot is centered right above it. It really brings the game full circle. There's also the fact that your Miraidon or Koraidon possesses Terror Blast, a move that takes advantage of the game's signature mechanic and will win the match for the player, since you can terastallize into a Dragon type to hit the opponent super effectively. While it lacks the intensity of the first phase, which was the real challenge, this playful melody uses the motif of the South Province to portray that you're in the final stretch, just like the Gym Leaders themes from Generations 5, 8, and 9. With the enemy legendary defeated, all that remains is to shut down the machine and say goodbye to the Professor's AI as they travel through the time machine to gain the freedom to find their own treasure, thus concluding Area 0 and Scarlet and Violet's main story. I think I'd be remiss to not point out that there are indeed problems with Area 0. A pretty pitiful frame rate in conjunction with the slow natural movement speed for your first visit can affect a player's experience, but I believe these are greatly outweighed by what Area 0 succeeds in and represents for the Pokemon series, a step toward the fantastical and one that taps into the greater JRPG genre. These crazier plot developments are standard within the genre, and I love seeing a series that has traditionally played it safe in its mainline entries decide to get a little off the usual path. The Mystery Dungeon titles have attempted more atypical Pokemon narratives, and that's partly why they are so adored by the fanbase. Moreover, the significance placed on a location that is built up over the course of the game is refreshing and also reminiscent of JRPGs such as Xenoblade Chronicles 2 and Paper Mario: The Thousand-Year Door. It's a web of mysteries for the player to untangle that functions as a hook for the player to work towards in order to satiate that conceptual curiosity. And even then, this massive crater still holds secrets left for us to discover, and I have a suspicion that's going to come sooner than later. And that is why I believe Area 0 is a terrific conclusion to Scarlet and Violet and one of the best additions to the Pokemon franchise. Hello everyone, thank you so much for watching the video and making it to the end, and I really hope you enjoyed it. As always, if you did enjoy the video and would like to help support the channel as well as what I do here, then consider leaving a like on this video and subscribing. I do a lot of analyses on series such as Xenoblade, Pokemon, Zelda, you name it. As well as a lot of other challenge and random other videos, so if that interests you, hey, we'd love to have you. But happy 2023! We are in the new year here at this point. That's kind of crazy to think, and I hope that you guys, if you've set some goals and resolutions for yourself, I hope that you guys are doing a good job in hitting them and hitting those checkpoints, you know? I know some of you guys might be wondering, where's the Xenoblade content? It's been a minute, and don't worry, I got some stuff planned out. It's going to be coming here soon, including something that might interest you guys in terms of, it took a little bit to get it going, but I'm sure some people will probably be happy with it, so stay tuned for that. We also did manage to hit 15,000 subscribers here on the channel, which is huge. That's awesome. Thank you guys so much, and we're taking very nice strides towards 20,000, which would be crazy. Anyways, on that note, thank you guys as always for the support and watching the video, and until next time.